This video is brought to you by the University Writing Center, a unit of the Department of Rhetoric and Writing at the University of Texas at Austin. You can contact us at uwc.utexas.edu.
Well, hi, I'm Lynn with the University Writing Center, and I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the much maligned and often abused passive voice. And what I'd like to drill down on is on the question, can we use passive voice in our writing, or is using passive voice a mistake? So passive voice is really the ugly redheaded stepsister of the much more esteemed active voice, which is a grammatical voice construction, right? And an active voice, the subject of the sentence, the grammatical subject of the sentence does the acting. So let me give you a couple of examples. The CDC considers vaccination the most effective medical approach to decrease the risk and severity of COVID. In this case, CDC is the subject of the sentence, and the CDC is considers the verb. They're doing the acting here. The subject of the sentence in active voice doesn't have to be a person. It can be an inanimate object. So the data indicates that high wing loading decreases aircraft maneuverability. We have two instances here, data indicating and wing loading decreasing. And then finally, the US Army must create a seventh warfighting function. Subject is Army, must create is the verb. They're doing the action. With passive voice, we sort of invert the sentence, and the subject is actually being acted upon, hence the term passive. So vaccinations are considered by the CDC as the most effective medical approach to COVID. Or aircraft maneuverability is decreased by high wing loading, as indicated by data. And then in the third example, a seventh warfighting function must be created by the Army. So again, the subject is being acted on by someone or something else. Now, American readers in general don't like passive voice. American readers see passive voice as an attempt to obfuscate or dissemble. This is the language of bureaucrats, the language of politicians. I'm avoiding responsibility, or I'm trying to hide something. For example, in 2010, British Petroleum, BP, accidentally dumped 250 million gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico. And this was out of their initial report. A complex and interlinked series of mechanical failures, human judgments, engineering design, operational implementation, and team interfaces came together to allow the initiation and escalation of the accident. BP never accepted responsibility in this report for the accident. And in fact, in all of their statements and all of their reports, and even their testimony afterwards, BP never once said, we did something wrong, we screwed up. It was totally passive voice. And this just irritates readers, especially American readers. So you get this letter from your postmaster, and she says, unfortunately, your package was damaged in transit. What happened? Who's responsible? Where's the package now? What's going on? And we just don't know. It's this passive voice that doesn't really tell us anything other than we're out of luck. American readers want to know who is doing the action. And I emphasize American readers because if you reach in your pocket and pull out some money, and there's a picture of the Queen of England on it, the Brits love passive voice. They write almost exclusively in passive voice. They also drive on the left-hand side of the road, the wrong side of the road. So we're not going to follow them. Americans want to know who's doing the action. So look at this bureaucratic statement. Proposed changes must be posted for public comment. There's no human involved in this, right? We don't know who's doing what to whom. This could be a cyborg talking to a computer. There's no humanity in this passive voice structure. This is an actual quote from the United CEO a number of years ago when they had a passenger incident on board the aircraft. United's gate agents were approached by crew members that were told they needed to board the flight. This sounds like passive voice, and we know who the actors are. The gate agents were approached by crew members. The crew members said, load the airplane, let's go. But in fact, if you read it carefully, that's not what happened here. The gate agents were approached by crew members that were told they needed to board the flight. We still don't know who propagated this problem with loading the airplane. It's written in a way that seems to blame the flight crew, but it could be the gate crew. We just have absolutely no idea. And then in the final example, additional information can be attained by employees from our website. I don't know what to do with that information. It just doesn't help me, and it just looks like somebody's trying to shirk responsibility here. Well, I've decided that there is a place for passive voice, and let me give you kind of 3 examples. The first example comes from our Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And I believe that our forefathers wrote this in passive voice because they wanted to emphasize men are created equal, as opposed to saying something like that God created all men equal. So if we want to put the emphasis on a certain person, a certain group, or a certain thing, we can use passive voice in a very effective way to do that. This is right out of a research paper. Understanding the predictors and consequences of course withdrawal is key to implementing interventions to improve student success. In this case, we don't really care who's doing the acting, right? This could be AISD, it could be the University of Texas or Baylor, it could be Harvard, it could be a grammar school. It really doesn't matter. If we understand the predictors and consequences of course withdrawal, then we can implement interventions that improve student success. It's good for everybody that's involved in education, in either the teaching or the receiving of that education. And the third thing, the third time that I find passive voice to be useful is when I want to change the tempo or the pace of what I'm writing. I just want to mix it up a little bit so that the reader, it grabs the reader's interest a little more. So we went to a party last night. A great time was had by all, right? I could have written, we went to a party last night. We all had a great time, but now it's just kind of repetitive. It's kind of boring. And by using passive voice, I can shift gears a little bit and perhaps keep the reader's interest. So all in all, I think there's a room for passive voice in our writing. But the bureaucratic passive voice, the lack of humanity, not saying who's doing what to whom, is what tends to irritate people, I think. And that's where I would avoid passive voice in my writing. So this has just been a quick presentation on passive voice. If you have any questions, please send me an email at that email address there, or swing by the Writing Center, and any of the consultants would be more than happy to talk to you about passive voice or active voice or any of the other questions that you might have about writing. So thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you later.